Hi everybody! So today we're going to be talking about notes 5D.3. This is the last set of notes in our cubic and cube root equations unit. Hopefully it won't be too unfamiliar to you because we actually did a very similar lesson to this in 5C.4 when we were talking about solving equations with rational exponents. This is basically the same thing. So today should not be too tough at all. So let's go ahead. Let's get started. Okay, I'm not going to lie. Love that transition. Anyways, so let's look at example 1. Okay, example 1 wants us to solve 4 times x minus 2 quantity cubed minus 3 equals 497. So they want us to solve this equation for x. So we're going to start with the equation. Now, just like we did when we were solving equations with rational exponents, our goal is to get the item that's being cubed or the cube root by itself. So it can't have anything being multiplied by it. It can't have anything being added to it. It needs to be completely by itself. So remember, when we simplify, we use PEMDAS. But when we solve, we use SADME. We got to go in reverse. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to add 3 to each side. When I do so, I get 4 times x minus 2 quantity cubed equals 500. At this point, I need to get rid of the 4. So 4 is being multiplied, so how do I undo multiplication by 4? That's right. We are going to divide by 4. When I divide by 4, I get x minus 2 cubed equals 125. Now that the parentheses cubed is completely by itself, we have to undo the cube. Well, to undo the cube, we take the cube root of both sides. When I take the cube root of the left side, all I'm left with is x minus 2. When I take the cube root of the right side, I only get 5. Now, remember, taking the cube root does not require the use of a plus or minus. Remember, the only time we use plus or minus is when the index is even. So remember, 2, 4, 6, 8, who do we appreciate? Plus, minus, plus, minus. So obviously 3 is not even, so he doesn't get a plus or minus. So plus, when you multiply 3 positives together, you get a positive, and when you multiply 3 negatives together, you get a negative. And we've talked about this. Okay, so at this point, we have x minus 2 equals 5. So to solve for x, I simply add 2 to both sides, and I end up with x equals 7. Now, don't think you're going to get off that easy, and that's all you have to do. Remember, sometimes it could be an extraneous solution. You don't know. So we have to actually check our answer. So I plug 7 in for x. 7 minus 2 is 5. 5 cubed is 125. 4 times 125, 500. 500 minus 3 is 497. So it works. Now, you're probably wondering, do I have to show my check step? And the answer is no. If you can do it in your head, I am okay with that. However, remember what happens if you write it as a solution and it's an extraneous solution. So if you put that down on your answer sheet, then you would lose credit because you're showing me that you didn't check your work. So please, please, please make sure you always check your work. At this point, we know that's the solution, and we get x equals 7. And that's our final answer. Let's move on to example 2 now. Example 2. They want us to solve the cube root of 6x minus 5 plus 3 equals negative 2. So just like on the other example, in this case, I need to get the cube root piece completely by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 3 from both sides. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. That gets me the cube root of 6x minus 5 equals negative 5. So to get rid of the cube root, we're now going, since it's by itself, we're now going to cube both sides. So let's cube both sides. When I cube the left side, everything cancels and I'm left with 6x minus 5. On the right, when I cube negative 5, I end up with negative 125. So at this point, all we have to do is solve for x. So add 5 to both sides. That gets me 6x equals negative 120. I then divide by 6. And I get x equals negative 20. Now I'm not done. I need to perform my check step. So I plug in negative 20 for x. That gets me negative 120, the cube root of negative 120 minus 5 plus 3 equals negative 2. I combine like terms. That gets me the cube root of negative 125 plus 3 equals negative 2. I now take the cube root of negative 125, negative 5 plus 3 equals negative 2. Now negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2, so that is a true statement. So we have confirmed that x equals negative 20 is our solution to this example. Now, here are 3 problems I want you to try. 3 problems that I want you to try at your desk. At this point, let's pause the video, give you about 3 to 5 minutes to work them is all it should take. And then when everybody's done, go ahead and resume the video and you can check your answers. Okay, so by now everybody's had a moment to check their work or to solve these problems and check their answers. So let's see what the answers are. For example 3, I got A equals 5. For example 4, I got x equals negative 52. For example 5, I got x equals 7. Now, you're probably going, well, I made a little mistake, or I can't figure out where I went wrong. So let's look at our next slide. So let's look at how I got those answers. If you look at example 3, you see that I added 4 to get the cube root by itself. I then cubed both sides, and then at that point, it was a simple linear equation, and I solved for A. If you look at example 4, same idea, except this time I had to subtract 9 and then divide by 4 to isolate the cube root. Then once I isolated the cube root, I cubed both sides, and again it became a linear equation that I had to solve. And then finally, on example 5. This was I had to isolate the parentheses cubed, so I had to subtract 4, then divide by 2. Once I got the parentheses cubed by itself, I took the cube root of both sides, and that left me with x minus 5 equals 2, and I added 5 and got x equals 7. So this is the work that I want to see from you guys on your paper when you're doing your homework. Okay, don't try to mental math this, because more times than not you might make a mistake and then you can't go back and retrace your steps and find out where the mistake occurred. So the work that I'm showing up here is the work that I want to see. All right, let's look at example 6. Fun with science and math. And I know all y'all out there just rolled your eyes, and that's okay. All right, so let's look at Earth science. It says for meteor crater in Arizona, the formula D equals 2 times the cube root of V divided by 0.3 relates the diameter of the rim in meters to the volume in cubic meters. What is the volume of meteor crater? All values, are approximate. So we have volume. So we're looking for the volume. We're looking to solve for that V. Okay? So they give us this formula, D equals 2 times the cube root of V divided by 0.3. So that's where we're at. Now, it then tells me that the diameter of the crater is 1.2 kilometers. However, if you look in your formula is in meters. So we're going to have to convert kilometers to meters. Now, I know there's 1,000 meters in every kilometer. So I'm going to multiply 1.2 times 1,000, and I get 1,200. So I'm going to put 1,200 in for D. So that gives me 1,200 equals 2 times the cube root of V divided by 0.3. So now we have to isolate the cube root. So the first thing I'm going to do is divide by 2. So that gives me 600 equals the cube root of V divided by 0.3. Now, at this point, since we've got the cube root by itself, we are going to cube both sides. So now look what I've done here on this next step. I didn't go straight to the calculator and do 600 cubed. I'm going to try to save that for the very end. So now I've got 600 cubed equals V divided by 0.3. So to undo division by 0.3, we are going to multiply by 0.3 on both sides. That's how I get V equals 0.3 times 600 cubed. At this point, it's calculator time. So you would go to your calculator, enter that in. You don't need a calculator right now. I'm showing you the steps. You can easily punch stuff into the calculator. But you would put this into your calculator. Now, the cube, if you're looking for the cube key, that's under math. And if you go to the math on your calculator and go down to option 3, there's your cube. Or, you could do it like we had to do it in the good old days in 0.3 times 600 times 600 times 600. You're going to end up with the same answer, which is that the volume of meteor crater is about 64,800,000 cubic meters. That's a pretty big hole in the ground. All right, let's move on to our last example. Okay, let's look at example 7, group investigation. So this is pretty good timing on this problem considering bracket selection day is coming up for the March Madness basketball tournament. So that's pretty cool. So let's look at this. So it says, in NCAA regulations, the diameter of a basketball must be between 9.39 to 9.55 inches. In the NCAA Final Four tournament, a basketball with a volume of 455 cubic inches was used in the championship game. Was this ball within the NCAA regulation? Show work and explain your answer. So, the first thing we know is our question is, was this ball within NCAA regulation size? Okay, so the other thing, just a quick reminder from geometry, the volume of a sphere is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. 4/3 pi r cubed. So what we're going to do is we know the ball that was used was 455 cubic inches. So this is our volume. So we're going to sub that in for volume. And we've got to get r cubed isolated. Okay? Now, the first thing I want to do is I need to get rid of multiplication by 4/3. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 3/4. But we also have to get rid of the pi. Now the pi is technically in the numerator. So I'm going to multiply by 3/4, but I'm going to put the pi in the denominator of that fraction so that they will cancel. So it looks a little bit like this. So the 3's and the 4's will cancel. And since that pi next to r cubed is in the numerator and that other pi is in the denominator, they will cancel out. So I get 3 times 455 divided by 4 times pi. So leaving everything in pi format till the very end, if I multiply 3 times 455, I end up with 1,365 divided by 4 pi. At this point, we are going to take the cube root of both sides because we've got r cubed isolated. So we've got r cubed isolated, so I'm going to take the cube root of both sides. Now, because we are comparing it to a pre-existing measurement from the second line, we need to make sure that it falls within 9.39 to 9.55 inches. We would plug this into the calculator at this point. However, let me warn you, when you're plugging this into the calculator, okay, you want to put 1365 divided by 4 pi in parentheses. So remember that cubed key I told you about? If you also go to the math menu on your calculator, you would go math and then option 4. That's going to pull up the cube root. And then before you start typing, you're going to hit parentheses 1365 divided by 4 and the pi key, close those parentheses, and then that way it's going to know it has to take the cube root of that entire fraction. Okay, so it will take the cube root of that entire fraction, and we find out that that gives us a radius of approximately 4.771 inches. But the regulations talk about the diameter of the ball, not the sphere. So how do we go from radius to diameter? Well, we multiply it by 2. And we come up with the fact that our ball is approximately 9.542 inches. So, what's our conclusion here? The regulations say that it has to be between 9.39 and 9.55. Our ball is 9.542. So, we can conclude that it was within the NCAA regulation. All right, so this concludes the lesson. Now, if you look at the PowerPoints that are in Canvas, you're going to see that there's two slides for an example 8 and and a slide for example 9. I'm not gonna go over those right now. I will save those for another time. Don't worry, they're not gonna be on your test. So, or excuse me, not your test, your quiz. They're not gonna be on the quiz. Don't panic, no test. Those two last examples that I've cut off from this lesson video, like I said, they're not going to be on the quiz. You're not going to see them. So you've got everything at this point that you need to be successful on that quiz. So let's talk about that quiz coming up next class. All right. So real quick, your homework is going to be 5D.3. 5D.3, and I have that copied off and ready to go for you. So each of you will get a copy of that to write on and all that good stuff. So that'll be your copy. So that's going to be your homework. Now, 5D.3, the top part of it is kind of a review of solving equations, but the rest of it, which you do have to do, the rest of it is a review for your quiz. Okay, a review for your quiz on Thursday. Yeah, everybody will take it on Thursday. Well, A-Day will take it on Thursday and B-Day will take it on Friday. Now remember, first and eighth period. If you're first and eighth period, you will take the quiz on Thursday because that is the longer class. So you will take that quiz on Thursday. Okay. On the quiz, you are going to have to graph a cubic function. You're going to have to graph a cube root function. You're going to need to know how to find the x and y intercept algebraically. You're going to need to know domain and range. You're going to need to know how to find the max and min over an interval of the domain, all that good sort of stuff. You're going to need to know how to solve equations. So basically anything we've done up to this point is totally 100% okay and might show up on the quiz. So just make sure you go over all 3 homeworks. You're very confident in that. All the videos are on Canvas. You can rewatch those. So just make sure that you are ready for that quiz. And remember, the answer key to all 3 homeworks are already in Canvas. Okay, so you should be set to go. And I will also, obviously I'm not here today, I'm not here on Tuesday, but I will be here on Wednesday for class. And then, which I probably won't help y'all too much, but I will be here Thursday after school for tutoring. But if you need help and I'm not here, you know the drill. Please feel free to visit another teacher. Any of the Algebra 2 Pre-AP teachers are more than happy to help you. So if you need help and I'm not here, please go visit one of them so that you can be ready to take that quiz on Thursday. All right. So now you have the rest of the class to work on the homework and you should be good to go. Oh, also remember on your quiz, it's no calculator. It's no calculator. It's all brain power, no calculator power. And again, please remember that you are going to need to know how to solve for the x and y intercept algebraically, because even if it appears on your table, we're still going to make you show it algebraically that you know how to find it. All right, so I will see you guys on Thursday. One last thing, please remember, if you have not showed me your 5A, your 5B, and your 5C quiz with corrections, that those are due to me no later than Thursday. I will not be accepting quiz 5A, quiz 5B, quiz 5C, and corrections any later than Thursday. Okay, so make sure you get those to me if you have not already done so, because that's your spiral check and that's a pretty easy quiz grade to get done. All right? Okay, well, have fun on your homework and I will see you guys in class. Bye-bye.